Welcome back, everyone, to my channel where we explore the infinite possibilities of humanity's evolution in the far future. Today, we are going to look at Humans Casually Devour Apex Predators for Dinner by Americ. The story starts with a joke about how humans could just eat anything they want. A guy is being chased through the jungle by a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he trips. As he looks up at the giant carnivore standing over him, he says, "Well, this is it then," expecting to be torn apart by the monster. "I got some fish. You want some?" The dinosaur came closer and stopped. The next day, the man was outside of his house and saw the dinosaur standing in front of him. It dipped its head slightly, as if in greeting, before picking up a stone in its mouth and dropping it on the ground at his feet. The dino dropped down beside them and curled up to sleep. He turned around to see the dino standing at the top of the stairs leading to his front door. He ran to the window and saw the dino standing on his roof, its tail swishing back and forth. He quickly got dressed and went downstairs to open the front door. In the morning, he woke up to the sound of roaring. He ran to the window and saw the dino fighting off a pack of wolves. The man even started taking the dino with him on his travels back in time. The dino loved going on adventures with the man. It would help him fight off dangerous animals and protect him from harm. The man also learned that the dino was actually female. He named her Fang. It had managed to kill most of them, but there were still a few left standing. In the middle of the clearing was a small hut made out of wood and leaves. The man knocked on the hut, and a woman came to the door. If you enjoyed this story, check out more stories about humanity's conquest of the multiverse or watch another video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment with your suggestions for future videos. And as always, I want to thank all the patrons for supporting my work. Your generosity helps me to continue making videos on a daily basis, and I appreciate each and every one of you. She was short and skinny with long flowing hair and bright green eyes. She looked at the man and Fang and said, "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for food," the man replied. "I haven't eaten in days." The woman smiled and said, Come in. I'll give you something to eat." The man and Fang went inside. The woman gave them some fruit to eat and told them that she lived alone in the jungle. The man grabbed his rifle and ran outside. He shot at the remaining wolves, scaring them off. "I don't like people," the woman replied. "They're noisy and annoying." The man smiled and said, "I understand. Sometimes I just need some time alone, away from everything and everyone." The woman nodded her head and said, "I can understand that." The man finished eating and stood up. He looked at the woman and said, "Thank you for the food. I'll be on my way now." "Wait," the woman said. "Would you mind staying here with me? I get lonely sometimes, and it would be nice to have someone to talk to." The man thought about it for a moment. "Sure," he said. "Why not?" The dino stepped inside and looked around curiously. The man followed it, making sure that it didn't break anything. It sniffed at his couch and then laid down on the floor. The man scratched behind its ears, and the dino purred loudly. It dipped its head again and nudged him with its snout. The man patted its head and said, "Go on, get out of here." The dino whined, but backed away and disappeared into the trees. The man sat down on a nearby rock and watched as the sun set behind the trees. The sky blazed with colors as the last rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves. He brought it back to the living room and placed it in front of the dino. It quickly ate all the fish and then looked at the man hopefully. The man walked over to it and scratched behind its ears. The dino purred loudly and licked his hand. The man smiled and walked back inside. He knew that he had to feed the dino more often. Otherwise, it would keep coming back to his house in the middle of the night to steal his fish. Plus, it liked being around humans, so he didn't mind having it around. He shook his head and said, "That's all I got." The dino whined and laid back down. The man felt bad for it, so he went back to the kitchen and got out some more fish. He brought it back to the living room, and the dino ate it all in one sitting. The man sat quietly for a while, enjoying the peace and quiet. Then he got up and walked home. He knew that the dino would follow him, but he didn't know what it would do once they got there. The man understood and picked up the stone. He chucked it back into the forest, and the dino dashed after it, retrieved it, and brought it back to him. The man smiled and nodded his head. He tossed the rock again, and the process repeated itself several times. It looked at the man and let out a low growl before making a grab for his bait. He threw them all into the clearing, and the dino quickly ate them all. Then it looked at the man and made a grab for him, knocking him down to the ground. The man laughed and reached out to stroke the dino's snout. He felt its rough scales and bony plates under his fingers. The dino closed its eyes and leaned into the man's touch, purring loudly. The man stood up and walked away, leaving the bucket behind. The dino followed close behind. It grabbed 2 of the fish and devoured them in a single bite. The man held up another fish, and the predator snatched it from his hand. It wanted more. He threw its head back and roared in appreciation before looking at the man expectantly. He shook his head and said, "That's all I got." The dinosaur let out a frustrated roar before taking off into the trees. But the T-Rex simply walks over to a nearby lake, takes a drink, and walks away. Humans can eat anything. They ate the dinosaurs. The author seems to have written this story as a way to vent about his neighbor as loud music. That opening line reads like an actual quote from a certain type of person who always makes excuses for their neighbor. But this is a far future human. This man has no such qualms. He has access to technology that allows him to travel back in time to the age of the dinosaurs. He does so often, though perhaps not as much anymore. These days, he mostly just goes out into the woods near his home to relax and listen to the birds. He used to go further back in time to hunt dinosaurs for fun, but nowadays there aren't many left. The ones that are still around are extremely dangerous, intelligent, and aggressive towards humans. And to be honest, he doesn't really feel like dealing with them anymore. He was walking back home after spending a few hours fishing when he heard the telltale roar of a hungry predator. He sighed and looked around for a tall tree to climb as he prepared to run for his life. It had been decades since he last ran from one of these things, but he still remembered the feeling of terror that accompanied the task. Then he noticed that the beast wasn't coming straight for him. In fact, it seemed to be looking around for something to eat. The man realized that he could make a run for it, but the big carnivore would likely catch him and kill him. So he decided to stay put and try to reason with the animal. The man called out to the dino, "Hey, why don't you come over here?" As it disappeared from sight, the man laughed and went back to his cabin. Then the man went inside and came out with a bucket full of fish. They walked into the woods, and the man pointed to a patch of ferns. As he approached his cabin, he heard the sound of heavy footsteps on the wooden porch. The next day, the man was woken up by the sound of heavy footsteps on his roof. After a while, the man went to the kitchen and got out a bucket of fish. The man sat down on the couch and watched as the dino fell asleep on the floor. After a while, he went to bed. The dino looked at him and let out a grateful roar. The two became fast friends. One day, the man and Fang were walking through the jungle when they came across a clearing. "Why do you live in the jungle all by yourself?" the man asked. And that's the end of Humans Casually Devour Apex Predators for Dinner by Americ.